Hello and welcome to our 8-hour event.
Oh boy.
We are going to discuss Daredevil and from Netflix and Age of Ultron, Avengers. I'm totally screwed up already, and we're not even a minute into it. Before we
A
go any
minute into
further,
hour 8.
before I go any further, we are going to spoil the heck out of both things. So if you've not seen Daredevil, which we'll probably talk about first, and then Avengers, then what planet are you from is really what I have to say. But
You're all a bunch of fake nerds, is what you are.
what are you podcast for? Go and watch Daredevil and Avengers. Okay, well, we have Rhea and we have Tracy, and I have no funny, catchy thing today because
Aww.
I didn't think of anything. I'm not crazy. Ramblin', Tracy Mock, and Rhea the Devil. Rhea the Devil.
Rhea the Devil of the Badlands.
There you go.
Rhea the Devil Dowhauer sounds great, though. That sounds really good.
Actually, it does. It goes really well.
Finally I have.
And Rob Foggy Bloom. There we go.
It's sad but appropriate that I'm rambling Tracy Mock, not battling Tracy Mock.
Well, at the beginning of, was it April?
It was.
That Daredevil was released on Netflix, and true to form, I'm sure Tracy watched it in one setting.
I didn't. As badly as I wanted to, it came at a really busy time for me, which is all of the times anymore. But it took me a week. It took me a week to get through all of it. But
I think it took me 2.5. Rhea, you were about the same. I think you beat me by a couple days, didn't you?
Yeah. It took me about like 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, there were a few nights I probably could have watched 2 episodes, but I wanted to savor it a little.
Yeah.
Which, that might be one of my big complaints about Netflix, is you gobble it all up at once, and then you're so hungry going, I want more and more and more, and you gotta wait a year or whatever.
that's true.
Okay, let's just go initial thoughts. Just initial thoughts. Rhea,
Okay.
go first. Just your initial splat, here it is, thoughts.
About Daredevil.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was really nice. I talked about on my own podcast about how I loved Agent Carter and how I loved that we got to spend like 12 episodes with one character, and then Daredevil took that one step further, and I was so shocked, like second episode in, just that fight sequence in that hallway, and I was just like, well, I'm sold for life on this show, because I was so impressed. It was so different and just really stylized and not at all what I was expecting.
Okay, Tracy, just initial thoughts. We can go into details, but just boom.
Yeah. Daredevil is maybe the second comic book thing I really super got into after devouring X-Men for 10 years of my life. And so this show was like all of that come to life. I was so happy. I don't want to use words like perfect, but it was dang close to just anything I would want a Daredevil live action or any kind of show to be. It was Daredevil brought to life.
Okay, and then I'll throw in my 2 bits on. I think that Daredevil has been the most accurate live action adaptation of a character. Not just down to the villains and the heroes and all the side characters I cared. It has been what makes us nerds go, yeah, see what can be done when done right. Look what can be done when it's done right. So, yeah, initial thoughts. I think all 3 of us, pretty damn high standards. It's
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree exactly with what you said. By the end of episode 2, with what I think might be the greatest on-screen fight scene ever, I was sold. That fight scene is beautiful. That was
Well, and it's not even the fighting itself, but it's just like the way it's shot. And I know it's something that's been done in other movies, or it's inspired by the way it's been done in other movies. But it's just it does so much of just like with the rawness of like who this guy is. Like this isn't Captain America kicking guys off of battleships and like stuff. This is
and through walls. No, it's
yeah. He's a dude. He's not even good at fighting. But he's just gonna go in here and just get the crap beat out of him. But he's not gonna leave this hallway until he saves this kid.
well, and you see them tired and.
Yeah, he stops for a minute and he just kind of like lean up against it, and then he's got to like shake it off and go right back into it, and it's just the most exhausting thing in one take, and it's amazing.
But even as he goes into the hallway and you don't see him and you're just hearing what's happening, and he's talking to the boy and he's. Yeah, I was telling Crystal, I'm like, that was the most incredible shot. That just. The emotion that it gets across from exhaustion and excitement and the relief that the boy's okay and then that they're getting.
As cool as all of that was with the fighting and how like the camera never leaves the hall and all of that stuff, the moment that really made me like my heart stop and I was like, yes, this is what I want, is when like he's beaten everybody, he's ready to walk in there and rescue the kid, and he stops himself, pulls his mask off, and then goes inside because he has that moment of like, I don't want to scare him. I need him to trust me, and I like that's it. That's the hero moment. Like not like kicking all those dudes over and over again in a hallway, but just like he stops, pulls his mask off, goes inside to like make this kid feel like he's safe. And I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, I like that moment too. And pulling back into like the larger Marvel universe, I mean, it's always fun to go see the Marvel movies and see how they connect and how everything leads up to the Avengers and stuff. But I with Guardians of the Galaxy, I was so tickled knowing that like while they're having their adventure in space, like they're Cap and the rest of them are drinking coffee on Earth, and then this is like a more intimate view of that where it's like why the Avengers are avenging, he's just in his little corner doing his thing, and it just feels connected, but also just like also making a new thread because he was just working in that small area, and he wasn't part of anything larger just yet. We'll see what happens in season 2, but I mean, like, I loved that. I love that we got to see like what's happening on the ground here in New York City.
I 100% agree, and I love that kind of telescoping of the Marvel Universe. Like you said, like on one end there's the Guardians out there doing crazy space things, and then on the complete opposite end of that, it's Matt Murdock getting the crap beat out of him in a shitty apartment, and in a stocking mask and a shirt he got at a sporting goods store, and I think that springs onto the way they tied it in like the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe. I thought was super smart, where it's like, yeah, this is New York post Chitauri invasion. The Avengers have saved the day, whatever. But hey, what happened to the city after that? Things don't just go back to normal. There's tons of destruction everywhere, and the way they capitalize on that by explaining like, hey, this is how the Kingpin comes to power. This is how these street level villains who don't have crazy alien tech and superpowers and whatnot, this is how they rise to form by capitalizing on the casualties of those things that are happening one step above Daredevil.
I don't remember who it was either this week or last week. I think it was Joss Whedon, but somebody was disappointed that Daredevil wasn't made into a movie and was made into a television. Was it Joss?
It wasn't that he was disappointed when they were talking about the character when they got the rights back. He was pushing for a movie. Like, he was urging Marvel, like, you should, when they were trying to decide between movie or TV show, and they were leaning TV show, he said he pushed for movie, and they went, obviously they went with TV show. And I don't think he was disappointed. I think it was just that he was wrong. And
I think that the intimacy that they were able to handle Daredevil with, not only that, but also the amount of screen time he has received is more than Captain America has. And I think if it's done right, it's nothing but a benefit. Now, if this was, I don't want to say Smallville is dog crap, but let's say it was, the quality. There wasn't a drop, not one drop of camp in Daredevil.
Mhm.
I was waiting for there to be something. There was comedy, but there was not camp ever in Daredevil. Yeah. And we see camp in Flash, and we see camp in even in Arrow.
Mhm.
But you don't, and even in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you sometimes have a little tongue in cheek.
Sure.
But I didn't feel 1 ounce of camp in Daredevil, and other than maybe the costume at the end, I thought might have been a little campy, but it was handled with such reverence and seriousness that is what I think you calls for in certain ways of telling a Daredevil story. Now, you can do the Mark Waid more recent take, but I don't think that's the avenue that they were taking here. I think it was more of what Bendis had established and Frank Miller in that. I think it was more that Daredevil.
Well, yeah, and the beauty of Mark Waid's sort of cheerier, friendlier Daredevil is because it's built on the ground of all that stuff. Like the only reason, his run has been so. What made it so special and what made it work is that he had to live through like years and years of crap to finally get over it and be able to like just shake it off and put a smile on again. And then even that, like if you actually read the run, it's all about how people deal with depression and like kind of the shields we put up and stuff like that. So even underneath all of that, it's not like all just bright, sunny, cheery.
Absolutely.
But yeah, definitely they couldn't start with that because that's so much of like that's just not how the character worked. Like so much of the comic book history is just about like everything crappy happens to Matt Murdock forever until the day he just decides that he can rise above it.
Let's talk a little about the side characters, Foggy and Karen. And I think Kingpin is a whole episode on his own, but Foggy and Karen and the reporter whose name I was supposed to remember even
Ben Urich.
Ben Urich.
I feel like I don't really have any context for Daredevil outside of that Ben Affleck movie. And so right when I started this, I'm like, wow, they obviously totally messed up Foggy's character and just made him like a minor comic relief. And I just, that episode, Nelson v. Murdoch, was that was probably my favorite episode of the whole series. I was so shocked. It was a whole episode about two friends, like not even like screaming like in a Steve and Tony style, but just like so upset that this thing was kept between them and just how it was like breaking their friendship apart. It was riveting just watching these two men just struggling to save this friendship, and just like, God, it was heartbreaking when Foggy just left at the end. And I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen. That was so upsetting.
Well, and I told you that like the big thing to me about all of that was that you full on see Matt cry, just tears, cry tears, because his friend is upset and was hurt and is going to leave him. And I just thought like that was just like the best, most real, because like the Matt Murdock Foggy Nelson relationship is just one of the best things about Daredevil and one of the best things in comics. And seeing that on the screen was so much of a delight. But just that they let him, it was just a big thing to me that they let the hero of the TV show, who's supposed to be this real badass guy, he just had the most kick-ass fight you've ever seen in episode 2, but we're going to let him show some vulnerability and cry about his friend. And, you don't see, like, Steve doesn't even shed tears for Bucky in those movies, but you see Matt Murdock cry because Foggy's going to walk out the door.
It's the kind of care that you can only really see in a television series where they actually have some time. Like, that was a whole episode. Mm-hmm. A whole episode just
of them fighting / flashbacks of when they first became friends in college. Yeah.
And I agree with you. And not once did I go, oh, this is boring. It was riveting from beginning to end, and it was nothing but character building and world building with, where they came from, and, hints dropped about Elektra.
Yeah. That was definitely my favorite. And I just feel like it was just nice to, I love the Marvel movies, but I'm definitely getting into these character-driven series they've been doing, because S.H.I.E.L.D. is a lot like Lost, where it's an ensemble cast and you're like rotating between 5 or 6 characters and their backstories, and I love that stuff. I love Lost. Mm-hmm. But that's why I was like, I really loved Agent Carter, because it was mostly just her. It was just a character study of Peggy Carter, and I feel like Daredevil was like, it took it a little bit further because it was a character study of him, but then also of the other characters, because I felt like we learned a lot about Fisk.
It's definitely a 50-50 split, I think, between it being a character study of Matt Murdock and a character study of Wilson Fisk.
That was going to be my one complaint, and it's one of those, it's a twist complaint. But I'd almost argue that Fisk is the hero of this show.
You're a monster.
I'm not kidding. You look at some of the things I cheered for him almost more. You want to see him succeed with his girlfriend. You want to see him. They both had the same motive. They wanted to fix the city. And I don't think he enjoyed killing people. And he flat out said it, I don't enjoy being this monster. But there were many times, it was almost like I found myself cheering for Fisk.
Sure.
Because he was so sympathetic of a character and so well done. And that's why I was asking you earlier if Netflix qualified for Emmys, because I think Fisk is Emmy-worthy.
I'd be into seeing an Emmy nod for D'Onofrio for that, sure.
Because at first, when they first show him, I thought, oh, God, he's really hamming this up. But by the end of the episode where you first see him, I'm just like, no, he's doing something brilliantly different with this character.
Yeah.
It's sympathetic. It's almost like, I don't want to say he's slow, because that's not, but he's just off kilter a little. And
yeah, I thought he made some really interesting choices. And I was like you. I think for the first part of like the first episode he shows up in, I was like, is D'Onofrio just going too hammy with this? And then I was like, oh no, he's doing like some deliberate like character stuff here. Like he's really into this guy's head. And now you're sort of like just enraptured at every moment he's on screen. You're like, I don't know what's going on inside of there, but it's going to be crazy. And I agree that I think the best villains, and certainly the best ones at Marvel, are the ones that you sympathize with, that aren't like full-on world domination, I'm just evil, mwahaha, but it's Magneto, who was a victim of of one of the worst human atrocities that's ever happened. He's a guy like, I get why you want to do evil things. You had immense evil done to you,
but I understand why you're doing it.
Yeah, and the same, it goes down to Wilson Fisk that way, but And so I absolutely, and that's what makes him so interesting. I don't think it's anything bad or wrong with it. I don't call him the hero though, because he's still an evil man, even though he's evil for what he believes is the right
When you
thing. And
smash a
maybe
man's head in a car, you're evil. You're
well, exactly, yeah. When you pointed out, like, he's like he doesn't want to kill people. I feel like if you're gonna turn a man's skull into orange pulp in a car door, you kind of want to a little bit. There are more subtle ways to kill, a Russian dude than to just.
that you interrupted your dinner with your girlfriend.
Yeah, right.
Really set the scene for how I was kind of, that really freaked me out. Because I feel like that scene was a really good scene because he just couldn't stop, and just the thing that made that scene just scary was his reasoning for it. You embarrassed me in front of her.
Yeah.
Holy hell! I mean, that he crushed the dude's skull because of that.
He was there to accept the deal that he originally turned down and that Fisk offered him, which he would have happily accepted, and then in turn still tried to work ahead with the deal with his brother. But he just that one little hang-up of, I accept your offer, but I am going to have to just turn your face into pudding because you embarrassed me in front of this lady I like.
Yeah, and then to go along with what Rob said, I do feel like especially in the back end of Daredevil, like one of the things, especially with that, with Gao, and like they were always, like they said, oh, that woman's corrupting you, like making him more human in a way. And it was like she's messing it up because she's making you more human.
Oh yeah, that's the whole reason. Yeah, why she and Owlsley tried to wipe Vanessa out is because she was humanizing him, and they need him to be a monster in order to succeed.
Okay, Night Nurse. I forget what her real name is.
Claire.
Claire. I thought, for what her character was, and really what little airtime she had, she might have been one of my favorite characters. Yes, one episode was kind of dedicated to her, and then she, kind of popped in and out of random episodes after that. I wanted more of her.
Oh yeah.
Somebody on Twitter said they would love to see her pop up in all the Netflix series.
I kind of hope that she
as
does.
catching up all these superheroes, and I thought that'd be cool.
There wasn't a character in this that I went, they're screwing up there. There wasn't a single one that I just was, this doesn't work. Not once did I feel like somebody wasn't, even Karen, who I probably had the most speculative, she was great.
I'm just happy to see that actress on a show that's not terrible True Blood.
I've never watched True Blood, so I take it back. I've seen like
Good for you, Rob, because that show went down the toilet real fast. And I always thought she was really talented, and I really liked that character, Karen. I thought she was very she was like a mixture of like a Girl Friday and a femme fatale because she had all these secrets, and then of course the big thing that she did, killing Wesley just in cold blood, and then
Wesley was another character I loved. I loved Wesley, and I was terribly sad when he was killed.
Well, I feel like there was so much, like they left so much open. Like, why was he so loyal to Fisk? Like I thought when he had kidnapped Karen, like I thought he was gonna double cross Fisk. Like that's how I thought that scene was gonna go.
That's logical. I thought Karen was dead in that scene. Karen's gone. Karen's gone.
Oh really? I thought he was gonna double cross Fisk, and then he didn't. He was like really threatening her, and I just love that. It totally shocked me when she didn't even let him finish. She just shot him like 6 times.
Well, Tracy, I know very little about Karen in the comics, but they allude to that there's other secrets. She knows Mandarin. And she like blew it off, like not Mandarin. I'm sorry. When they asked her about knowing Spanish, she seemed very evasive when she answered, like, and she, said she picked up the gun and said, "What makes you think I've never killed a person before,
Or I
or
think
shot a person before?"
I think she said that you assume I've never held a gun. I think is what she said, or something like that.
Is there a mysterious backstory in the comics about her?
Not so much a backstory, but there's a lot that happens to her in the comics, so it might be some kind of backwards loading for what they do in the show. Like maybe rather than having stuff happen to her down the road, they have it in mind that maybe stuff's already happened to her, and we'll find out more about it. But she, like, why she and Matt are so great together is because they both just have the worst lives.
Oh boy.
About Wesley, and this is something I only just started thinking about. Kind of the beauty of it, of him, because he didn't betray him, and certainly there was that thought of like, oh well, he's the right hand guy, so obviously there's going to be some moment where he tries to betray Fisk, because that's just what happens when you're the right hand guy to the man on top. You're gonna be Starscream.
I'm sorry, slow burn for me.
But the beauty of it is that he genuinely loves him. You see that in the film. Like what he does isn't out of any kind of fear, isn't out of any kind of business arrangement or loyalty. It's love. And so Wesley is to Fisk as Foggy is to Matt.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
In their weird, twisted world, that's who he has. That's the one person that they just have a mutual love that's just, it goes to the core of who these people are and whatever the circumstances were that brought them together. He just loves that man and will do anything for him, and that's really interesting. And it's not something you see in villain stories. It is always that cliche, somebody's got to be your bumbling sidekick or your guy that's just plotting to,
or the fact that oh god, I can't remember her name again. The woman that Kingpin is wooing, when she finds out the truth, she doesn't run. She embraces it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of unique as well.
Yeah.
I love that scene at the end where she very purposefully put on that engagement ring when Fisk didn't show up at the helipad. And it was just it was a very cool visual of just her, I will wait for you. I'm not gonna, I know things are crumbling around, but I'm gonna wait for you. I'm gonna go with this guy and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about that with Vanessa is they're not doing any of the stuff where he's not secretly hiding all his dirty dealings. She's not blind to the things that he does or the kind of man that he is. She just full on knows it and accepts it, and it's not. And embraces it, and not in and then also similar to Wesley, not in a oh, I can use this, I can use Fisk to rise to the top. It's she just genuinely sees something in him, the same thing he sees in himself, that what you're doing is a necessary evil. This is we're in a shattered world, and we need shattered men to repair it, and she just goes with it, and I just like that she just has that sense of ownership of self. She makes all of her choices, and she makes them all with full knowledge of what she's doing, even though she's siding with
it actually
evil.
Seems like a healthy relationship.
She does.
It's crazy, but it's again why I feel like Kingpin sometimes really felt like the hero of this story, because it's a healthy relationship. You're cheering for him with this woman. And even though it's evil things they're doing, it's for the right reasons. It's almost like watching The Sopranos, where you've watched a whole season, television show where you know these are bad people, but you still you fall in love with them in this short amount of time, and you want to see them succeed even though they're doing terrible things.
Well, I think part of, it's, the having 12, 13 episodes to explore Fisk's character as well as Matt's character. The cliche saying, like, they're two sides of the same coin. But I felt like they really worked hard to show, like, if Fisk's life was a little bit different, he might have been the hero.
Or vice versa.
Yeah. Or if, like, Matt's life was just a little bit different, he might have been the villain.
And in some light, you could almost see that he was a villain. I mean, I'm not saying he was a bad guy, but he's going out and beating skulls, and he enjoys it.
Well, and that's a lesson that he learns throughout the show. Like, that it comes up a lot, and it's something that that's like in the final episode before Claire leaves, she has that talk with him. Like, she says, like, when I first met you, you told me that you didn't like doing this, like going out and doing this, and I believed you, but I know now that, like, I think you do. I think you do enjoy it, and that's a big part of the change he has to make is to realize, just how close he is to becoming Fisk at that point, and that's the most beautiful way that they were able to weave in, like, the question I think a lot of people were asking as the series was progressing, like, this dude's, this really works, it's so badass and grounded, why would he turn around and put on a red costume with devil horns? It doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't he just stay stocking mask and just keep beating up criminals that way? And it's for those reasons. Like, that's what he learns at the end and what he realizes, and that's why he goes to Gladiator. They don't call him that in the show. To make his suit, is he knows he kind of needs to become a little bit like these guys, in the Avengers. Like, he needs to become a colorful character. If
a symbol.
A symbol. He needs to become a symbol to earn the trust of people, and to keep himself from becoming a man like Fisk.
I'm gonna miss his first incarnation of the costume, which was just street justice with street clothes and a blindfold.
I loved it. I love that costume. I actually, if it would have stayed that, I would not have mind.
No. I would. You're all wrong.
I thought it was really cool.
It's cool, but nothing could replace the joy I felt when he does, like, finally put on the suit and he's there and he's fighting, and like that. As great as the series is up until that point, that fight with him and Fisk in the alleyway in the very last episode is like, there's Daredevil. That's Daredevil right there.
But
and it's not campy, Rob.
That's a little campy.
Well, dressing up in Captain America's a little campy.
It is. I won't.
They pulled out on it too in Avengers when he wore that super tight suit. My goodness, that was like the campiest thing ever.
Rewatching Avengers as I did before seeing Age of Ultron, it took me back, like, especially since we've had like a few as
Captain
good.
America's outfit is awful in Avengers.
As his costume in Age of Ultron is perfect. His costume in Winter Soldier was really cool, and then but just you forget, like, that suit, and I gave it tons of forgiveness because I thought, like, hey, it's comics, and that's comics.
The worst one.
But yeah, it is not. It is. He looks real silly.
But I love it because it was the tightest one.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it is. It's just snug all over.
I think Chris Evans hated it though. He said it was too tight.
I'm sure it was.
But yeah, they kind of modernized it a little bit. But I just love how they just straight up let's put Chris Evans in the tightest outfit we can to show off all his ridiculous muscles. And it was just hilarious, and like every girl swooned. Like it worked. Like it's like I forgot. I'm like, oh yeah, this outfit's supposed to be silly, but dang, His butt looks great.
Well, I was really happy with what they did with the Daredevil's costume at the end. I thought it was really smartly designed. The same guy that designs all of the Avengers costumes designed that. Like Ryan Mandering is his name. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but he's the guy that does like all the concept art paintings that come out before the movies.
Oh, okay.
And he's the one that like does a lot of all the designs for all the Avengers.
My only problem is with something in the nose area seems a little off to me. That like he's got to constantly have his head up, and something just bugs me a little bit. But otherwise, I like the horns. I like the look. I don't really. But if you were to ask me which I prefer, I really liked the way the black looked. I thought it was a cool street level kind of feel. But
it's cool. It's cool, but it's not Daredevil.
I agree. Not Daredevil.
It's
the devil of Hell's Kitchen.
You know you're dying to talk about Easter eggs.
Yes.
Did you see Stiltman's legs at the shop?
I did. Yeah, Gladiator's shop had Stiltman's legs. That made me so happy.
This is one I can't take credit for catching this until afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a theory out there that maybe Bullseye was the sharpshooter.
Mm-hmm. Because he's got an ace card in his bag when he's unloading the gun.
I didn't catch that.
They never show his face.
Yeah, later on. I didn't catch that during the episode. I did catch Stiltman's legs, but did you catch Stan Lee?
Yes. In the final episode, in the police station, on the wall commemorating other officers or honored officers, there's a photo of him in a policeman's cap.
I totally missed that. Oh my gosh. I was wondering if they were going to do something like that because they did it in S.H.I.E.L.D.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was full on in an episode.
Yeah.
He was. I kind of like this though, and let's face facts. Stan Lee's not going to be around for much longer.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that they can still do creative things with him. But let's maybe see a Jack Kirby in there once in a while or something. But
well, that's true. Well, he can't cameo. He can do.
Well, if you can do that with Stan Lee, you can do something. You know.
I think you underestimate the use of holograms, Tracy.
You're right. There should be hologram Jack Kirbys in all the movies. Just being grumpy about stuff.
I don't know any.
Kirby didn't create Daredevil, so he's fine there.
Let's see. I got my notes here. What do I want to?
There are several Iron Fist Easter eggs and teases throughout Daredevil.
I saw that there was one or two that I at least caught, and I remember telling Crystal, I'm like, I think that's a reference to Iron Fist.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what's Iron Fist? And I went, well, never mind.
Wait until next year.
Well, and I think that is probably the biggest glowing recommendation is Crystal doesn't really get into Flash. She doesn't really get into S.H.I.E.L.D. She doesn't really get into Arrow. She watched every episode of Daredevil. After the second episode, I didn't have to talk her into it. She was like, watch it without me. So,
awesome.
So
it was solid.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about, launching their Marvel's new, I don't know, medium property of like Netflix series. I'm like, this got me so excited for AKA Jessica Jones later on, and I can't wait. Like, I mean, I was already excited when they announced all the characters that they were going to focus on, but now after seeing how just great Daredevil was, I'm like, oh, I can't wait. Where is it? I want it right now. I want all of them right now.
Well, today this seemed to blow up with Tom Hardy rumored to be.
It's not a rumor. He just said in an interview that he wants to play the Punisher.
Really? I would be into that.
So it's not that he's rumored to play him, it's just that he says that that's what he wants to do. But I would think that if you're Tom Hardy and you say, I want to be the Punisher, somebody at Marvel better be reading that and going like, hey, can we get Tom Hardy's people on the phone?
I have a big soft spot for all the Punisher movies, and I would.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I would love to see a TV series about him. I would be so into it.
I think it would be the best way you could properly do the Punisher. I've only seen the Tom Jane one, but just I think as a character, and especially after watching Daredevil, like definitely that level of introspection and care is what would be best for somebody like Punisher. It's just so weird to have to rush through a film and be like, all right, here's your family tragedy. It makes you want to be a vigilante. You got to take down mob guys. Here's the mob guy you got to fight. Take him down. There's your movie. The end. And it just there's no
there's
no room for pathos.
The mob guy is the guy who killed his family, and it.
Oh yeah, it's such bullcrap. Yeah, and you give us a series. You can spend some time. Here's what it was like in Desert Storm or whatever you want to say he was a part of. It's been so many wars over the years because they keep having to age him down. Spend time with him in the military, or like have flashbacks to that throughout the show to learn like who he was. Spend time with the family. The worst thing about his origin in the movies is it just suffers from like the Uncle Ben problem of or even in the comics probably it's you're just told this is my family, I love them, they're dead, I'm angry, and you don't get to actually spend time like, well, why? What do you love about them? What are they like? What's your relationship like? You know, like that's the and I didn't mean to throw Uncle Ben under the bus or in front of the bullet, because Raimi and Webb both did great jobs with him in their movies, even though he has to get to spend a ton of screen time. I think he got more screen time in the Webb movie than in the
But
Raimi
I think
one.
in both movies he got substantial time.
Yeah, and they were great actors that played him, and I've super loved Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben, and they did a really great job. But like in the comics, he's in all of like a page and a half, and he's killed in the origins, and that was one of the best.
Supposed to care.
And that was one of like the best things that Bendis did when they did Ultimate Spider-Man. Is he gave you like 5 whole issues where Uncle Ben is alive before he ends up getting killed. So when Ben is killed, you genuinely care and you get their relationship, and it's sad and wonderful. And I feel like with the Punisher, you know, like I wouldn't even know like whether have them get killed at the end of episode 1 or have them get killed
at the end of the season.
And I don't know about that far, because then you have a whole season of him not even being the Punisher. You know.
Or finally reveal it at the end. Yeah, I mean, there's. Story.
But at least, yeah, you at least spend time with them, so you genuinely, that when his family is gunned down, you should be as angry as Frank Castle.
Rhea, you said you were a fan of the Punisher movies. Did you like? I don't know the actor's name, but Volstaff's Punisher.
Ray Winstone?
Yes, that's it.
I don't know. I can't remember if I've seen that one or not. I just
I personally liked it because it was more violent, and I hate to say I liked the movie because it was more violent, but it was more Punisher violent.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of touched on, but the worst scene in all of moviedom shows a Frank Castle with like a tennis sweater, you know, with his family out at the park, and it's like, well, no, he doesn't. He isn't some corporate schmo that one day turns into the Punisher. That was my only problem with it.
Oh yeah, he's a war veteran.
I always liked the '80s one, Dolph Lundgren.
The only skull is on the tip of a knife.
I know, and that was my jam. I couldn't believe when I saw it that I remember seeing it first, and then my dad told me he was a Marvel character, and I was like blown away. Because like back then, my only Marvel character I knew off the top of my head was like Spider-Man. I'm like, this Marvel did something like this? What? It was just kind of blew my mind.
I would love to see a series done with the Punisher. and pull in elements of what. Wow. Ennis is a good example, but Ennis incorporated a lot of humor and violence for violence sake.
That's
I
kind of
didn't.
though.
What's that?
That's kind of his style, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were a big fan of Tracy. You were a big fan of. Here I am on the spot, and I can't remember his name. The writer who did
Greg Rucka.
Rucka. You were a fan of Rucka's run on Punisher.
Yes,
That's what I would like to do, where it's like you almost have the Punisher as a background character, and you learn about the Punisher as these police officers are learning about it.
I would love nothing more if a Punisher series was just literally an adaptation of Rucka's run on that book, because it would be the perfect way to do it. Because I've never been a Punisher fan. He just doesn't really connect to me.
Was fun too. I liked Remender's run on Punisher until the Franken Castle.
And it's in my pile to read, because I do like Remender a lot, and I know that if there's a run outside of Rucka's that I'm sure to enjoy, it'll be his stuff. But like Rucka got me so much because he took that kind of Gotham Central angle to it a little bit. Not as much as Gotham Central, because it wasn't a book about the cops, but certainly, yeah, he was more like this sort of force of nature that you're seeing through the eyes of the police officers that are kind of following him. But you do spend actual time with Frank, and then more than the police, it's told through the eyes of this woman who sort of experiences her own Punisher origin, much the way Frank did, of having her own wedding. Yeah, it's gunned down everybody at her wedding, and then it's kind of through Frank Castle sort of mentoring her / trying to keep her from becoming him, and then it's just the most I've ever connected with the character. And then I just, I think she was just such a great character herself that I'm sad that nobody has done anything with her since his run ended.
I still need to read that.
Thing with Punisher since then.
That's true. He was a member of the Thunderbolts up until recently.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's certainly a lot of talk about it, so I'd be surprised if they don't work towards that at some point, whether it's another movie or if it's in a Netflix show like this. I don't know how much Tom Hardy would slum it on a Netflix show, but certainly it's getting more and more notoriety. Like it's kind of becoming like the new HBO in a sense, with House of Cards and Orange is the New Black, and they've been drawing some big name actors.
I'm sure they're getting their paychecks as well.
Oh yeah, and I think that'd be a great way to do it. And Stephen S. DeKnight, who is the showrunner, executive producer of Daredevil, has said a number of times that like the number one character he'd like to work on after Daredevil is Punisher. So I mean, if he could bring the same care and skill.
Ennis did a really good crossover in the early runnings of Daredevil, and Punisher, that had Daredevil in it. Sadly, Daredevil's a little bit of the bitch in it, but it's cool to see how Frank takes him down, and then eventually Daredevil weasels his way out and stuff. But for most of the issues, Daredevil's on the receiving end, and it's a really good story, actually. But anyway, just saying, silence, looking at.
I'm sure it's something. If I gave it the chance, I'd probably like.
I'm terrified that you're gonna hate Preacher when it comes out, because there's similarities between Preacher and Punisher.
I'm sure I'll like it more for television than I probably would for comics. I don't know why, but it just seems like
I could see that.
things.
I'm curious. I'm really curious how this Preacher series is gonna go. It kind of hits the ground running here.
It is the most unique concept I've ever read that is not superhero related. That just it blew me away. It was my first real stepping outside of superheroes. And yes, I had read Sandman, but honestly, Sandman never connected to me the way everybody told me it would. I liked it, but it didn't connect to me. And then when I read Preacher, I was like, oh my god, I love this. This is so warped.
It is.
Might say something more about who I am than.
The man who considers Wilson Fisk the hero of Daredevil.
You're never gonna live it down, Rob.
Nope.
Not with Tracy here.
Oh, okay, one last note that I had to cover is they mentioned Matt's mother and kind of hush it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's that about? I don't understand. Like, she's obviously.
Is that covered in comic books?
Yes, absolutely it is.
Okay. And then we also learned that Stick seems to have been looking for children. Do you think that Stick might have some connection to what we're going to see in future Iron Fist?
Yes, because of the man he's talking to at the end of that episode. Has ties to Iron Fist, and I think they just barely touched on the Hand in the series with Nobu, I think his name was.
Yeah.
But obviously there's bigger things happening with them going on out there, and I wouldn't I don't know how much of that they would save for a season 2 versus or if they might even go ahead and start
Defenders
Yeah, well, certainly if they're teasing Elektra, and if Elektra is something that they would do in season 2, which I'm almost certain that it would be, that would be a lot more tied to the Hand or how you do that. But I'm curious to see how it plays out, especially because when these shows were announced, and even when we were watching Daredevil, we didn't even necessarily know that there was a chance of a season 2, much less that we would be seeing it possibly before they even culminate into the Defenders. Because when they announced that a season 2 is greenlit after season 1 was so hugely successful, like they said that we'll see it in 2016, and then I thought, well, shoot, I thought 2016 was going to be, Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and then maybe Defenders, or maybe Defenders is going to be a 2017 thing, but that would mean that we'll probably get 2 seasons of Daredevil before they even team up in Defenders, so that they might be doing more Hand stuff there.
I feel like Daredevil has already established himself as the Iron Man for TV. That in that short amount of time, it's all anybody is talking about, with the exception of, well, okay, here comes the Avengers movie, but it hits so much gangbusters, and people, again, who know Rob's a comic nerd, I have to talk. People were coming out of the woodwork asking me questions, and I'm like, you couldn't find a character I knew less about, but boom, if all of a sudden I care about him too. And
That's true, actually, and I wouldn't have thought of it that way before, that Iron Man was, or that Daredevil was doing for TV, streaming or otherwise, what Iron Man did to kickstart the Marvel Universe. But I think you're right, because it's not just because, like, the stuff that's been on ABC, as much as I love it and as good as I think it is, it's all spun off of the things. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. spun out of things that were the Avengers, and Agent Carter spun out of stuff that had already been established in
Even
Captain
though it's
America.
called Shield, it's not the Shield we know. It's the movie Shield.
That's not even my point. It's more that even ignoring that there was ever a movie starring a soon-to-be Batman, the Daredevil show treats it like this is the first time you've ever seen this character, this is who Daredevil is, and then suddenly you're intrigued, and that's what Iron Man was. It was like,
Yeah.
you know, he's not Spider-Man, he's not Batman, he's not Superman, he's not, you know, Wolverine. Who the heck is Iron Man? I don't know what this is. And then boom, he hits you. You're suddenly entranced. And I think that's like you said, that's what I think Daredevil has done. And then now all of a sudden, it's like all eyes are on. Oh, well, what are they gonna do next? So yeah, it's like now, yeah, who's even fewer people know who Jessica Jones is. You know, what the heck is that show gonna be? And then, you know, Luke Cage and Iron Fist and all this stuff. The same way that, you know, audiences were like, Thor? What's Thor? Is that the guy? I don't know. Like, I've heard of Captain America. I don't really know what his deal is. He just has like the shield, right? What's, you know, that thing, and it just all spins out of there.
I know that I have like Crystal's gonna watch because of how riveted she, and I'm like, it's the same teams of people that are putting this all together. That this is going to, you know, now that she's given Daredevil a chance, I think she'll be like, okay, I'm ready. What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the general consensus of non-geek people that this is the way Iron Man opened up doors for the movies. That I think Daredevil maybe opened up some doors for some more obscure characters that, you know, like where Thor may not have gotten. If you just put out a Thor movie on its own, without an Iron Man before it, I don't know if it would have been successful. But
yeah, that's a fair point. I don't know that it would have either, and that's why it's smart the way they're doing it, where, you know, it's a character that people are at least vaguely familiar with. Maybe they saw the movie, they may or may not have even liked it. So, you know, but it can win them over with something that's fairly easy to get behind. You can get behind charming billionaire builds a robot suit and fights a bad guy who's another billionaire in a robot suit. And then you can even better, you can get behind, you know, this blind lawyer fights crime. I don't know, like he's Batman without the money or
it's Marvel building their
skills.
street level.
And
it's funny that it started off as TV, but it's, you know, you have the not cosmic stories, but cosmic level threats the Avengers are handling on the big screen. Well, these street level things are being handled by street level, and it's kind of a nice synergy that way as well.
Oh yeah, because it's a whole world. It's a living, breathing thing when
and
you
it still feels connected. Which, again, I wish DC did better. They do very well with Arrow and Flash.
Yeah.
But you know,
and they're building their own corner with the Atom spinoff, and I don't know whether or not Supergirl ties in. But yeah, this is a whole just web of things that all tie together.
So okay, it's 10:45. We haven't even gotten to Avengers yet. Should we wrap up the Daredevil talk?
Yeah, sure.
I think I got everything I wanted to say.
Yes, please.
Oh no, I said everything I wanted to say about Daredevil.
Okay.
The only thing I have left to say is just I'm excited about what's coming next, and Ryan Philippi.
Is that confirmed? I don't know how I feel about that.
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
It's in discussion, or at least he's on the table, or.
Well, yeah, allegedly he has talked to Marvel about a Netflix show. That's all that we actually know. And then everybody went, oh, Iron Fist, but we don't even know if that's who he was in talks about. Maybe he was talking to them about a villain. Maybe he's talking about a completely different show.
I'd love for him to be a villain. Cruel intentions, man. Keep going straight back to the source.
But I'm excited for the next one. I want to see what they're going to do with a pretty obscure character in AKA Jessica Jones. Might be the most obscure thing Marvel has put out, considering the pantheon of characters they've put out on live action. She might be the most obscure.
Oh, Jessica? Yeah.
So maybe the biggest risk, but I think also the biggest reward.
Well, yeah, even more so, because she's the first character to headline something who's been created, since the year 2000, kind of, like...
Good point. That's
Iron Man, Thor, Cap, most of the Avengers have been around since the 60s. Even Black Widow was created in the 70s. And yeah, Daredevil also 60s.
Those are all 70s characters.
Yeah, but Jessica was, she was something created in, I don't even remember, 2008 or something like that. So that's like the newest thing that they've, certainly, Maria Hill is one of those creations because they both are people created by Brian Michael Bendis, but she's not headlining something, she just appears in things. But this is like the first time they're giving headline power to someone who, in the scope of things, and even still to a lot of comic book fans, is very new. Unless you're a person like me who's been reading all of her adventures from the moment she appeared, there's still a chance that you don't really know that a lot of comic fans only know her as, oh yeah, she's married to Luke Cage, right? That's kind of, and then
that's where I started with her.
Mhm. So I think that's exciting. I never would have expected that. Yeah, hey, we're gonna do a bunch of Netflix shows based on our characters. Daredevil's gonna kick it off, but then next one we're gonna do is AKA Jessica Jones. Like Hellcat is gonna be in her show, and you would think Hellcat should be the one leading the show as far as
only.
Uh-huh.
As long as she shows up in costume, I'll be fine.
I would love. I hope so. But we'll see. But I think it's really cool because she's a really great character and someone that we've never seen in a Marvel movie or any real superhero movie. Because it's like you said, Daredevil is street level. Jessica Jones is street level, except this will be the first superhero of the Marvel universe who gave up. She tried to be a superhero, realized she sucks at it, and then quits. So it's what happens to the person with superpowers who just doesn't like being a person with superpowers? They don't do that story in the Marvel films, and I think it'll be cool.
I think it's a story that can only be done in TV. Also, because I just feel like you need the time to know what's going on in her head.
Yeah, you can't do a movie about the superhero who quits.
An hour and a half. No way.
And then with Iron Fist, I feel like I'm expecting a 36 Chamber of the Shaolin. They'll have 13 episodes so that half the movie won't be training.
Yeah, you sound like you know more about Iron Fist than I do, because I know very little about Iron Fist.
I only know what my dad told me, because he really liked Luke Cage and Iron Fist Heroes for Hire back when he was a teen.
Yeah.
So.
And
I had a lot of friends that was their favorite. Iron Man and Power Man and Iron Fist were their favorite comic books, and I knew nothing about them. Okay, so let's go to some small movie that came out last weekend. It did okay. It knocked off that race car movie. Second highest grossing opening day. Is that what it?
Yeah, second biggest opening day in history after the original Avengers.
After the original.
Dethroning. It dethroned the opening night record held by Dark Knight Rises.
Okay. It's funny how Dark Knight Rises got that, and that's my least favorite of that trilogy. But
that was its opening night. It had opening night record because it was the movie after Dark Knight. It was the movie that everybody wanted to see, and then after it opened, it was the movie everybody wanted to complain about.
Yes.
And Tracy disagrees with him to this day, but that's not the point of this conversation.
Well, before we move on, I liked it.
Thank you.
There's that.
I liked it a lot. I thought it was one hell of a follow-up. I say it's equal to the original Avengers. There are things I liked about the original Avengers better. There are things about this movie I like better.
I think Rita was talking about Dark Knight Rises, but yeah.
Oh. Dark Knight Rises, I don't like. I'm sorry.
I didn't know that. Well, we'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah. Dark Knight Rises bugs me on many, many, many levels, but it's not Bane. It's not. Yeah.
Well, you know what bugs me on many, many, many levels? Why everybody can't get behind how great Age of Ultron is, because it is fantastic.
Right? What the heck?
Queen of the transitions.
I'm keeping it on point.
Yeah, again, absolute A. I give it an absolute A. I loved it a lot, and I may have even increased my opinion after you told me about the Thor scene, and then now I've read about the Thor scene because that was like it really bugged me where I'm like, okay, they're jumping into a car and now they're in a pool. Did I miss something? But you know, I feel a lot better about that scene. But otherwise, love the movie. Love the movie.
I've seen it twice now, and I watched the first Avengers the night before seeing the second one, and I still hold to my guns that I think it is a better film than the first one.
I'm not saying it's not a better film.
Mm-hmm.
I like them equally.
That's
different
fine.
reasons.
Oh, no, that's certainly fine, and they're both special for their own reasons and all of that. But I think it is a better movie, and that's why I don't understand other people.
I'm not on the board of people who hate it. That's for sure.
No,
I have problems.
I thought it was way better, and I told Tracy almost immediately after the credits started rolling. I said this was way more of a Joss Whedon movie than the first Avengers was. And then I've been telling people who haven't seen the movie yet, I've been calling it, I'm just like, if you like Serenity, the movie, you would like this movie. I felt like the humor and just like the pacing of the action with interspersed with lots of little quips and humor just really reminded me of Serenity, which is why I call it like a true Joss movie. And just like also weaving through like the character moments, the serious moments with the funny moments and stuff like that. Also felt like a true Joss thing. So Joss fans who don't like this, I'm just gonna say it. What's your damage? What? Oh my goodness. I can't even with you. I just can't even with any Joss fan who did not like this. You failed Buffy. I don't know. Well, Buffy or patron saint of Joss, I guess.
I want to start off with something I haven't seen or heard anybody compliment, which as comic fans we've been begging for years, is starting off with the threat already in existence. And they're attacking, and we go in, and here are the Avengers going after the bad guys right from the get-go. And we've been clamoring for that for I don't know how many times. We want Spider-Man to be starting off, and he's fighting blah, blah, blah. I don't know how many times we've begged, and here we finally get it, and I still don't hear anything but complaints about it, because that's what we wanted. We wanted the team going.
Absolutely, and I have heard compliments on that, because the people that I went with both nights, I think, commented on that specifically, and how it's the most comic booky of the Marvel films so far, and in a good way. That's not
I agree.
Anybody who takes comic booky as
Derogatory.
as derogatory term is missing the point, and hey, it's insulting. Because it's like that's from the very first minute. It's an Avengers movie. The first Avengers, it takes so long to build the team, which it needs to. You have a lot of characters from a lot of different backgrounds you have to pull together. But even before you even see the first glimpse of anyone you know, before they even show Tony Stark, you have this whole long opening of, S.H.I.E.L.D., everybody at Project Pegasus, Fury, Maria Hill, and all those guys setting all that stuff up. But it builds to that great catharsis, so that when you do get that great moment at the end, that one long tracking shot of all the Avengers working together to take down one of the Chitauri ships, it's like, oh my god, this is what we were waiting for. And then they do like the smartest thing in this, where they open the movie with that. It's like if Avengers started with all of them taking down that Chitauri ship, because it was like you get one gorgeous long tracking shot of here they all are, they're working, you're following, Thor lands, he takes these guys out, and then Cap jumps by in a motorcycle and does a cool thing with the shield, and then everybody doing all the stuff, and you're like, that's what they do. You're watching a superhero team fight evil, and it's amazing.
Talking to each other as they do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quipping, and just making you laugh right away. And
did Cap just say language?
We're not gonna.
I'm seriously gonna ignore that he just said language, and just the fact that everyone razzed him on that for the whole movie.
That's a great one of those great,
awesome. Yeah, that
great
was
running gags. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you kiss your mom with that mouth?
But yeah, it certainly helps, like, that they were they had sort of the benefit, I guess, of having these loose ends to take care of, which is really interesting, and that they make a point of that, since we're coming to the close of Phase 2, which will, the final curtain will be drawn on that when we see Ant-Man in another couple months. But just making a point of, like, Cap saying, like, that's the last, hopefully that's the last of Hydra and the Chitauri. And I think, like, generally that's kind of like the point of that whole opening and everything, is like just clearing the board of everything we've been worrying about so far in Phase 2. You got all the last remaining bits there. Everything has been so much about Hydra and the Chitauri, and now we can move on to other stranger things and cosmic things and whatever.
I did find it unusual that... not unusual. I was shocked how quickly they killed off
Strucker?
Strucker.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was thinking he was going to be one of those... I don't know. I sometimes hold him in the same regard as Red Skull, and he's not, but he's still a higher...
Yeah. And I think we can take that kind of thing for granted when... I don't know, it behooves them more in comic books to keep guys like that around for decades, because it's just something But, like, how much more could they do with Strucker in another couple movies?
They killed him off kind of quickly in the movie. I mean, it...
Well, yeah, but in a sense... he's he's been a part of the cinematic universe since Winter Soldier, and they've been talking about him all throughout season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And mostly dealing with his underlings, but we saw a List, who's been his right-hand guy, who's been on S.H.I.E.L.D. all season, and then you see him up there on the screen standing next to Strucker for the first time, and I thought that was a huge, great way to see the bridge between Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the movie universe. And
I feel like the kind of quick killing of that character is like another one of those setting the scene things of there's bigger things to come. Like not only in that movie with like Ultron kind of like making his place of like I'm the real threat, but also in the next Captain America movie, which is basically Steve and Tony going to head. I feel Crossbones is going to come back, and I feel like that's going to be more personal than anything else.
Yeah.
Not related to Hydra at all.
Yeah. I feel like the killing of Strucker is almost like symbolically shutting the door on Hydra as much as Cap just saying the words. Like that's all with Hydra. Because
the Zemo, he got bombed in Captain Winter Soldier, like his whole computer brain was destroyed.
Arnim Zola.
Sorry, not Zemo. Yeah. They still have yet to introduce him.
They're going to, though.
Ah, cool. Anyway, but yeah, Zola, they kind of like, they brought him back and then they kind of shut that door. Mm-hmm. And then they did. I
don't think that door is totally shut. I feel like
really? Okay.
Yeah. for a computer consciousness, I feel like
it's like saying Ultron's gone forever. Ultron's never gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and because I still want them to give us a dang Zemo and you had me doing it. A Zola in a robot body. I feel like they owe us a robot body for Zola.
I agree.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I felt like the Strucker almost felt like a red herring of sorts, where the more important thing were the twins, and then Ultron just bugging everything up. And I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was an interesting choice.
Did anybody else? I know that Ultron's first appearance in comics, or early on in his appearance, he did have the hood on. But when he appeared to the twins, did you get a Dr. Doom feel out of that like I did?
I did. Yeah. But that it's a deliberate callback to when he was introduced the Crimson Cowl.
Reference, but it was very Dr. Doom-esque to me.
Oh yeah, and like especially because you see like the metal hand, so you think of like Doom's armored glove, and then just like sitting in a throne, and it was just very, very Doom-like.
The voice work in this is so phenomenal, and I know others have complained about it. I don't believe either of you guys have, but I thought that the way that the voice delivery for Ultron was so exactly what I wanted to. You know who's doing it. You know what's coming out. It's a little humorous. It's very dark because it's not like hello, I am a robot. I am here to kill you. It's somebody that you almost relate to, and he's terrifying and.
Yeah, well, and it's also not like just standard scary bad guy voice either, because I feel like we've gotten enough of those standard scary bad guys in these movies, and I think the brilliant thing about the characterization of Ultron, which I feel like a lot of people are missing, which I think is dumb, but we'll probably bring up, and it's something Rhea and I have been talking about a lot lately, of just what poor comprehension skills people seem to have these days. But with Ultron, I think what people are missing is, since he's created by Tony Stark, and he's meant to be sort of the dark half of Tony Stark. He's his child, essentially. Like, forget all of, Hank Pym has nothing to do with it here. This is purely Tony, what has Tony wrought, and he learns about war through Tony. Like, they hammer, I feel like they hammer it home a lot in the movie, to the point where he says to Ulysses Klaue a line that Tony Stark said to Ulysses Klaue at one of the conferences that they bring up.
I completely agree.
He stopped dead on there and like, what did you just say? Tony Stark said that to me, and that kind of thing. And it's cause guys, that's why he talks like this. When you get upset, like, what? I don't think Ultron would refer to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch as, hey guys, like, he would, because Tony would, and that's he beats Tony to a joke. He steals one of Tony's lines when talking to Ulysses Klaue. He's Tony Stark in an evil robot body. That's the whole point.
I couldn't have said it better.
That's why he's funny. That's why he's smarmy. That's why he's really casual with people, because that's how Tony is.
And I think they got the perfect actor to portray that and yet still come off as creepy.
And, Spader.
And yet still funny. And,
yes, Spader does sinister funny really well.
Some of the lines that he delivered, when they first introduced him to the Avengers, and we had seen the scene before in Stay tuned to S.H.I.E.L.D. and see a special snippet of. So it wasn't like we were surprised, but when he comes out, he is so creepy.
I looked away from the screen when that happened, so I've been
finding, especially for anything Star Wars, I'm really getting to the point where I'm knowing too much going into these movies.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't watch the Jeremy Renner on what was it, Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah.
Whatever he did where he
One
came
of them.
out. I didn't watch it because I don't want to have everything crammed down my throat before seeing. Afterwards, throw it all at me.
Oh, yeah.
The Jimmy Fallon thing was I only watched it after, and it was just him being super goofy. Like, he almost made no reference. It was just him singing a song about how he's valid to the team, and it was all silly stuff. Like, I have the best cat on Instagram, and he was singing and playing piano. Mm-hmm. It was super funny.
But I was making a point of avoiding all that, too, because even if it's not a direct spoilage type of, I kind of don't want to know context. I miss the days of totally being surprised in a movie, and I almost hear we're past that nowadays. But
being really, the first time I kind of got a sense of this, at least with Marvel movies, I could not believe how many clips they put online of Winter Soldier before the movie came out. Like, I was shocked. I avoided all of them, and I was just like, why
you didn't know that Bucky was Winter Soldier? You did. I think they totally ruined that surprise. I mean, Tracy and I think, had discussed a few times that, well, maybe they did or didn't. We're not real sure but it felt like sometimes they were trying to keep it a secret.
Well, I feel like if you were a Marvel fan of the movies and you followed those trailers, like, I can't tell you, like, the first trailer, you see Bucky in that haze, and, like, the first comment was like, is that Bucky? And I'm like, oh. Like, so, I mean, like, if you hadn't read Winter Soldier at all, I mean, like, they totally dropped their hand in the first trailer, and, like, even the movie people knew it was him, and so it was only, like, the people who didn't follow all that gasped in the theater the times I went to it.
Yeah, we're in a weird space where I don't fully know what movie audiences pick up on versus, like, what is known from the comics. Like certainly we all went into Winter Soldier knowing the whole story because we just know it from the books, and there's nothing. I mean, not the whole story. Yeah, the movie still had plenty of great surprises because they're smart and they're not just.
But the general concept we know.
Yeah, but at least the stuff about Bucky and all of that. But it's weird. Like, I didn't know. I wasn't even 100% sure if, like, movie audiences were gonna even remember that there was another dude in Captain. Like, do they remember enough about Captain America to know that that guy who was his friend and like died on that train, that's him? Are they gonna remember that? I don't know. We're in an interesting place where there's so much. This is like the most continuity that has ever been necessary to know to enjoy movies.
Yeah.
And it's exciting and cool because this is where it starts to feel like how the comics feel for us. Now that we're past all just endless origin stories, and you get to have really cool stuff like this, but it's weird, and it's very it's very gratifying and validating that so many people are into it and are keeping up with it and are getting really invested in it, because you do have that. Like, I had a friend that I saw it with on my second viewing. Like, she was saying, like, oh, watching all of them like fight like that and work together as a team, and it just made me, it just made my tummy excited, and it just like this, watching it, and I told her, like, I know, that's how it feels when, like, that's how I felt my whole life. Like, in reading it in the comics when that kind of stuff happens, and it's just cool that it's like being introduced to the world.
Well, in some ways, seeing these characters brought to the screen is like a child meeting Santa. I know that sounds really immature to say it that way, but that's kind of the way I felt when they get it right, and you feel like they understand what they're doing and they're doing it right. But even on some of the the less good movies, I've still felt like a little bit of a sense of awe seeing like characters that you love being brought to life, and more so, it's like 10 years ago, if you would have told me we would have a movie where the main villain was Ultron, I don't think I would have thought it was possible. And
or that even more than that you would spend however many movies building up the threat of Thanos.
Yeah, and
to the point of, like, I shared that Kevin Feige quote with you guys about how because I was kind of miffed that I'd seen some people online complain that the credits tag in Age of Ultron wasn't a bigger deal. Like, they wanted, I don't know, they wanted the debut of Spider-Man, or they wanted the first peek at Doctor Strange or something. But like what Kevin Feige pointed out is, like, when they were doing screenings for the movie and they would get to that tag, and you would have people in the audience that are like, oh, wow, that's so cool how the way they tied it into Guardians of the Galaxy like that. Like, oh, that's the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's, like, so cool to me that, like, yeah, they're still, like, that's still fresh and new and cool to those guys. Even though we're like, yeah, Thanos, we get it. We know what's coming up. We know they're building to this thing.
Was the glove yellow? I don't remember if his glove was yellow.
Yeah.
No. Wait, in the
movie it is. Yeah.
Gold.
It's gold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gold.
It happened so quick, and I've only seen it one time.
Oh no, it's shiny gold. If you when we get to go to another viewing, I think you can definitely tell.
IMAX can be on the screen so big.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think, kind of going along with what Tracy said about, like, the movies kind of, seeing them brought to life, and then, how the movies are having, especially the fact that, the movies are so many and so connected now that even if you don't read the comics, like, you recognize that guy in the Avengers end tag as, like, being the guy that was hovering on a space chair in the galaxy. Like, I feel like this definitely felt like, I'm going to make a Joss reference, like Joss's season 4 Buffy finale, where he felt like, in the commentary of the season 4 Buffy finale, he always said that he always tried to wrap it up so that it was very neatly wrapped, because he was always afraid that they were going to get canceled. And then the season 4 finale, it was the first time he allowed himself, like, little threads to pop through of what was happening in the next season. And I feel like, not just with him, but with this whole Marvel thing, they definitely left some stuff open. like stuff wasn't resolved, like a lot of like big stuff. Like I keep telling Tracy this because it's the one thing I keep going back to is the when they were trying to revive Vision in that cradle, and then Steve showed up with the twins, and Tony and Steve got in a literal fist fight over this, and it was totally interrupted by Thor, who just came after Pietro had like unplugged it. Thor just showed up and lightning bolted it to life and didn't really give anybody an option to do anything. And then when they saw that, he was okay, he picked up the hammer, it was okay, they kind of just had to roll with it. But that fight between Tony and Steve about like what was right and wrong about doing this, that was not resolved. They just had to kind of go with it because Thor showed up and just made the decision for them. And it's kind of left like a big thread that I feel like will be picked up in Civil War.
That brings me to one little point. I was under the assumption, or that's not the right way to put it. I was betting that by the end of this movie there would be a divide. Yes, there may be small cracks, but I still feel like they ended the movie where they're still a team.
Well, they're not though, but they end it amicably. The movie does end where Tony has quit, Hawkeye has retired, essentially, and Thor ran off to go investigate Thanos-y things.
And Bruce is in the wind.
So you have 4 members that are no longer with the Avengers, and the Avengers are now Cap and Widow, building up this new team.
But my point is, it's amicable.
It's amicable. But it wasn't because Tony still has kind of a friendly farewell with Steve before he drives off at the end. But there's still this underlying.
I was betting a much more ending where heads were starting to really butt, and it was like, well, I'm taking my guys and going this way, and you can take your guys and go that way. That's what I was betting the ending was going to be like. I agree with you, Rhea, that no, things aren't resolved. Things are absolutely not resolved. But I still felt like there weren't fists flying at the end of that movie.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like just with how fast-paced everything was, like how they had to kind of just like put aside their differences and just like deal with the Ultron thing, and I like that because when they dropped everything. When Thor woke up Vision, basically, and they just rolled with it. It really kind of was a subtle way of showing, like, how they've really gelled as a team, where they're willing to put that kind of stuff aside for a bit in order to get the job done. And I think that's a big reason of why they parted amicably at the end, is because they know the job comes first. I mean, like, even Hawkeye was talking about that with his wife,
And let's also give a lot of credit of that to the Vision, because that's a whole big part of his whole monologue he gives before even the great reveal of his worthiness. It's him just discussing with them how they need to put all this aside, and there are things out there that are bigger than any one of us can handle, and we need to do this. And it was a theme that was, throughout the film. It was at the beginning when they first argue about it in Tony's lab, and Steve says, well, how are we going to beat this? We do it together, and then Tony echoes that line again at the end. But it's it's a big part of like Vision's shining moment after his birth, is kind of just laying all that out there. And I think I'm with you, Robin, that I would have, going into it, thought that that's, of course that's how it's got to end, because Civil War, and just how angry everybody gets about Tony and all the things that he's done. But I think as a movie, it works better that it happened this way. For both films, I feel like, because it lets this movie feel like a movie under itself. It has an ending. Mm-hmm. The movie has an ending, and then it allows Civil War to have a beginning too, because you wouldn't, it's not Age of Ultron Part 2, and it's not Avengers 3. It's got to be
It feels
able.
like it might be Avengers for 3 though, the way they're casting it.
Well, the way they're casting it, yeah, but I think that's just because that's just the nature of the important things that are going to happen in that movie. And
let me interrupt you. I agree with everything you just said, but I still feel like we got to cover a lot of ground to have a Civil War in a Captain America movie now, where it's not Tony's movie, it's Cap's movie.
Yeah.
But it's starting to feel like Cap versus Iron Man is really what it should be called. I mean, we all know that's what Civil War is.
it is.
It feels... Civil War is the event that kicked off the modern age, in my opinion, of Marvel. So it holds a lot of weight. And I don't want it... and I don't believe it will be half-assed done. But I thought by having a ending that felt like the pathway to Civil War felt more logical, and this isn't a pathway. I agree with you. It feels like it's its own movie, and I agree that it should be.
I think the pathway is there. I don't think it's as heavy-handed or as direct as it would have been if the movie literally ended with, the two of them just
my way and...
head to head, we're through, and then, like walking on.
I feel like they haven't really gotten there in their relationship anyway. Like, I feel like, they were very, polite to each other in Avengers 1, and you can tell that they're, close, but that they still kind of, man, Tony's insecurities, what a plaguing, that group.
That's a good way to put it. He's very insecure.
Yeah. And you could tell that, when Cap was saying, when Tony was talking about, when he was talking about, those sentries or Ultron, and he's like, well, what if there's going to be somebody that we can't beat, so how do we do it? And then Steve said, as a team. And then Tony, Mr. Insecurity was like, what if we lose? And then Steve was like, we'll do that as a team. And it's just you could tell, it was such a touching thing, but you could tell Tony's not quite there yet. What? Sorry.
It's proactive versus reactive, which is kind of what Civil War kind of is about.
Yeah. I just expect that, I'm curious to see what's going to bring Tony Stark back in Civil War.
Me too.
Because I'm like I said, they kind of, I feel like the ending of Avengers 2 was just well, agree to disagree, see you later. And then,
I did love the scene when they're walking down the hallway joking about the Vision being able to pick up the hammer.
Yeah.
He's not really real, so it doesn't count, right?
Yeah, they're still jokey friends at that point, and I think Tony, they came close, but I think because they had to come together to defeat Ultron, that things got kind of put back aside, and they were able to be a team and be friends again. But yeah, there's still those underlying issues, so all it needs is that one last inciting event that takes everything that's built up to this point where they just crack. And I think that's what Civil War will kick off with, and I think that's what it deserves to be there. Just a regular day in the Marvel Universe, and then, because that's how it was in the comics too. That's how Civil War starts. It's just regular day in the Marvel Universe, and one just disaster, and then all of a sudden we have to start making some real tough decisions here, and then lines are drawn, and then friendships are broken, and then that's it.
I don't have it in front of me. The next movie is Ant-Man. Then is the next movie then after that Captain America?
Yeah, Civil War this time next year.
Okay.
May 6th.
So we don't have any. I know there's in discussion, but we don't have any Iron Man planned. We have Ragnarok for Thor,
Mm-hmm.
and then the newer movies, Black Panther and Captain Marvel and Humans, and
But yeah, we'll have next year will be Cap, Doctor Strange, and Thor Ragnarok, and then the year following that will be Guardians 2 and Spider-Man, and then it'll be
isn't Black Panther in there earlier?
no, it'll be the year following that. It got bumped when Spider-Man jumped in there.
That's right. That's right.
Because Panther and Captain Marvel were going to come out in 2 separate years, but now they're going to come out in the same year, the year following that, plus Infinity War and Part 1.
Not to totally change the subject, but it was just yesterday, and all I did was I saw it on Facebook. I didn't open it. I didn't read it. But there was some mention of Kevin wanting the X-Men back or would like to have the X-Men back. Did you read that article?
I didn't read that article, but I don't need to know that Kevin wants the X-Men back.
Of course he wants them back.
He wants everyone back under one roof.
I bet. There's a lot of connecting threads they're missing out on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although I like where X-Men's going, I gotta tell you, I am so into this '80s X-Men that's gonna be happening.
Oh, yeah, I do too, and
I don't see why Tracy would like it. Wait a minute.
there's no reason for that, truly.
I have a question for you guys about Ultron. What did you guys think? I haven't seen much about this, and so I'm curious what you guys think about Hawkeye's character being completely different than it was in the comic book. I leaned over to Tracy when they revealed he had that family. I was like, can you believe this is happening? And I mean, I loved it, but I couldn't believe it was happening when it was happening.
No,
well, I go back to what's going on with Arrow and Flash. It's its own universe, and Mockingbird's already been established as her own character in S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm not saying they couldn't eventually get together or whatever, but I thought it was nice. I thought it was a really cool. Yeah, I'm all for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic, and I'm not one of those sticklers that is like, it's got to be exactly like it is in the comics, because sometimes there's stuff that the movies do that's better. Like I already like movie Vision and movie Scarlet Witch more than I've ever liked either of them in the comics.
I completely agree with you, Tracy. You're much. I even you may not agree, but I even like both versions of Pietro in both different movies better than I like comic version.
They're both good. Like I told you, I had a real thing for Quicksilver growing up, and if you haven't read Peter Davis' X Factor, that's prime Quicksilver material there. But
I was just curious that I guess the thing that surprised me most about the Hawkeye reveal is that I always felt like the comic that Matt Fraction did was so popular. Mm-hmm. I thought they would be inspired by that. And then they do this, which is the polar opposite of what Matt Fraction's Hawkeye is. And I was just shocked because I don't know, that comic seems popular. I just always assumed that if they fleshed out his character on screen, he would be like more like that. He is in that book, and then he wasn't, and I was so shocked.
I agree, and I was with you, and leading up to the movie, I was always like, oh man, I just want one little reference, give me Pizza Dog, or
boats.
Yeah, have him say he's great at boats. Just give me something. Oh, I love it, because the comic is fantastic and it's great, but it works. And again, the thing about that Hawkeye comic, the reason why that comic is so successful and why people talk about it so much, is because it's the first time in a long time, if ever, that the character of Hawkeye has been that interesting or fun.
And it was a unique take, not just because it was Hawkeye. It could have been any character. It was a very unique take on a character.
Because the thing about Hawkeye, even though he's been around forever, and sure, he's got there's Hawkeye fans who were fans from a long time ago, or they liked him when he was in the Avengers or certain writers' runs, or they liked him when he was the leader of the West Coast Avengers fans were super into him when he led them, or like when he was the leader of the Thunderbolts and whatever. But he's never been a guy that reached, you know, Iron Man status or even, you know, like I think people like the Vision more than they like Hawkeye, and so he came not as a blank slate, but there was
open to interpretation. Maybe
there was a lot of clay there that they could mold and make something interesting and new. But yeah, like you said, like that could have been, you know, they could have done that with Brother Voodoo or, you know, Wonder Man or anybody. And as great as that is and how fun it would be to see it on film, I think they made an excellent choice doing that with his character in the movie.
Which really made me feel like they were going to kill him.
No, definitely. It's all built around it. Yeah, everything they do with Hawkeye in that movie, it just leads to.
Here I'm saying goodbye to my wife for the last time. Oh, I hope he's not going into battle. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's got a family that he loves and two kids. Oh.
To the point where if you rewatch it with the knowledge of this, and I was a little aware of it even the first time I watched, but there are two moments in that movie where someone, it's either, I don't know if it's Steve both times, it's definitely Steve one of the times, but somebody makes a speech about death, and the two times it happens, like as the camera is like panning by people's faces while someone's making a speech. One time is when they're fighting Ultron in the factory where the vibranium is held. The second time is when they're trying to save all the people in Sokovia. But in both speeches, when it gets to the word death, the character the camera lands on at that moment is the first time it happens is Hawkeye. The second time it happens is Quicksilver. So there's like deliberate camera things that they're doing there, I feel. But I think it's great what they did. It's a beautiful moment in the movie. It's the moment that I burst into tears watching it because I was just so moved. Like that, I had no idea that going in that was going to be a thing. That reveal blew me away. I love the actress that plays his wife.
I love that she picked up that Nat and the Hulk were a thing before.
Oh yeah, and I just love that stuff in any time. Like that's my favorite kind of thing in superhero stories and in comics.
Is the downtime.
Just that they're people. That they're people with lives, and that their lives that don't just revolve around defeating aliens and robot armies. So just like that moment of, and it was just like just boom, 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 hitting me with emotions of like, oh my God, he has a wife. Oh my God, he has children. Oh my God, they refer to her as Auntie Nat. Like just that there's this whole family happening that behind the scenes we didn't know about. That not only like with Clint, but like, oh geez, yeah, you know, like how Widow and Hawkeye clearly have a deep relationship that isn't romantic as much as people who watched Avengers wanted it to be. Yeah. It was like, no, like this is like they call her Auntie Nat, like that's so cool, like that means like that they've had family time together, that there were probably dinners that were just Hawkeye, Black Widow, and like his family, you know, just eating and stuff, and I thought that was so cool, and I love that they had that with the Avengers there, and I think that's the only character that you could do that with, you know, because certainly of the only ones that's been introduced, but even past that, like I don't know who has that life, you know, who could possibly have that life in the Avengers, who doesn't have, you know, unfathomable cosmic powers or some just tortured origin, something bubbling underneath.
Like Cap would be.
Hmm.
And I felt like that whole scene really kind of put into stark relief, like, how lonely all of our other Avengers are.
Maybe.
And just like how, it made those visions, Wanda showed them 10 times more sad, and it made them realize, it just, like, for all different reasons, they all feel quite alone. Even Tony, who has Pepper. It just all of them are just kind of alone.
It was such a huge thing to all the characters and just narratively for the story at that moment, and it's something that they kept going back to. Yeah, like Tony references it before he drives off at the end of the movie. Hey, maybe I'll be like Barton and I'll build Pepper, a cabin out somewhere, or a farm, and yeah, like it was what was rattling in Cap's brain. He hears Peggy's voice again when he's standing in the doorway there. Yeah. You hear her voice echoing the word, we're home, whatever. And that and it's the spark that sets Thor off on his journey when he just stares into the Clint's little girl's eyes, and he just realizes, he's like, oh, I'm so much bigger than this small fragile thing. And you can just tell, like, that's that moment where he knows, like, I need to protect this. I need to protect this world. I need to protect this child. I need to go out there and figure out what's happening out here in the universe. There's something out there that wants to end all of this, and it just affects everybody so deeply. That simplicity of life and protecting it, and whether or not any of them have any chance of enjoying it themselves.
I know I had other things I wanted to reference, and I'm not. Were there any Easter eggs in this movie that I didn't catch too many in this one?
There weren't as many big ones as there have been, but there.
That Stephen Strange moment that we did in.
Right. There were a couple. One for mostly just like for the fans. Like there weren't any like wider MCU, kind of Easter eggs the way that Stephen Strange name drop was, but just kind of fun little nods. The band that's playing in Cap's dream is like the Roy Thomas Review.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that. That's awesome.
Named after the creator of Ultron and one of the most famous Avengers writers. Ultron and the Vision.
The writer as well.
Yeah, and I think he wrote the X-Men after Stan Lee stopped writing it.
Yes, he did. Mm-hmm.
And when Tony Stark is choosing a new AI towards the end of the movie, and he picks Friday to be his girl Friday, but on the list of names he's picking from, one of them says Jocasta.
Jocasta, I did catch that. I caught that.
And I'll count it as an Easter egg, but not everybody noticed it on film. But the Clint's new baby boy that's born has stitched on his onesie his name, Nathaniel Pietro Barton, as a loving tribute to that little bastard.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tracy.
No, that's all right.
That's something we didn't really get to is the two twins,
mm-hmm.
the three new characters essentially, and then at the end of the movie, do we get 4 new Avengers? Is that what? War Machine, Falcon, Vision, and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
So, we got a handful of new additions to the team. I personally love Vision, and I think that was... But I really, really liked that take of Pietro, and was sad to see that character go in that movie.
Yeah, as much of a scene stealer as kind of the younger, more impetuous version of him was in Days of Future Past, the Pietro that's in Avengers is much closer to the character
Agreed.
I know from the comics. They both shared the same DNA, both literally and just figuratively, but maybe just because he's portrayed as an older, more troubled character in this,
I always pictured him with an accent anyway.
Oh, they should, yeah. They both came from Europe. They were raised in Wundagore, and their mother was a gypsy. Yeah, I cried. I was very sad to see him go. But I think we
There's a lot of teen girls that were really upset at the
the chorus of teen girls that just erupted with a no during the movie.
And I was like, whoa. I'm like, I was shocked too. I have to say, I was like, I thought he was gonna make it, and I'm surprised. Looking back, I haven't seen it again yet, but looking back, it was more Scarlet Witch's kind of origin story more than it was Pietro's.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and especially after he died, it kind of came together, especially with that whole speech Hawkeye gave her. Like, if you step out this door, you know, you're a hero.
You're an Avenger.
You're an Avenger. Oh, he said you're an Avenger.
Yep.
You're an Avenger. And then she stepped out that door. Olsen sibling for life. But yeah.
Yeah, for all of the things that Joss is taking his lumps for, regardless of if they are warranted or not, most of them not. I know that I killed another character. Go fig. Yeah, that's what he does. But I felt like it's a moment they earn in the film. Like, just narratively, it just works. Like, you need that extra bit of emotional push at the end. You know, like, I don't know, how do you do these like high stakes stories without?
And it's.
But yeah, like it
loses something, and
yeah.
I don't want to glorify death where it's like, well, no, you're not going to kill, Captain America with a gunshot to the head. That's next movie.
Oh, if that's how Civil War ends, I'm going to just pitch a fit. I will be so mad.
But you have to have some stakes, and sometimes they have to fail, or else you don't appreciate what's good in them.
Yeah, I don't think it's cynical to feel like in a movie, especially in a moment where it's like it's not even he doesn't die fighting Ultron. He dies when they're trying to do this impossible thing of we're gonna save every single person in this city. Like it's like the ultimate nobody dies tonight move, and
like the Superman movie did.
I don't even want to go there.
No,
that's neither here nor there, even though it's what everyone thinks is here.
Oh my goodness. I will say that I think, I feel like if you think of all the other Avengers movies, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like they have like minor characters die. Like Maya died in Iron Man 3. But who was she? It sucked, but I did no real emotional connection, just to show how evil Guy Pearce was. And then, I feel like they're saving a lot of their kind of, quote-unquote, not major characters, but, fan favorite kind of characters. Avengers has kind of become the movie where someone is not going to make it. Because they have a ton of movies where they all make it. So it's like, well, Avengers, we got to start, Shirley Jacksoning it here. Lottery time. Who's gonna die?
Well, but there'll be a Quicksilver, television show coming out next fall.
Well, right, yeah. The major death in Avengers is the star of a 2-season long running television show.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like, I feel like, you know, when you have so many movies where, like, the only people of real significance that die are the villains,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's kind of, you know, it shows that there is a consequence to not their actions, but there's a consequence to all this fighting, and it's always meaningful. It never comes across as like, oh, he's just killing people. I mean, like, Pietro's death was really moving,
Yeah.
and I still, like, you know, Coulson's death was shocking,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, I mean, I know he's not dead anymore, but
But
still shocking.
At
even
the time, we didn't know that.
well, even having seen 2 seasons of his show, still, like, I watched Avengers again last week before going to see the sequel, and my heart still breaks in that moment in the movie. You know, like, I don't bawl like I did when it happened originally, but it's still, like, just crafted so beautifully, and it's such a moving moment. Like, it still gets me. Even I don't care that I know what happens to him after the fact. It still gets me. And you know, it makes sense for a lot of reasons, even though it's sad. And you know, it's nice to have that change of pace where it's the guy that gets killed in the movie that is to spur on the female character when it's
The reverse fridging.
yeah exactly.
That's what Tracy and I called it.
Hmm.
How often do you see that in a movie where it's just like guy dies to motivate woman?
Yeah, I think we can
But I still felt like
let that happen.
the character was still developed enough
Oh yeah.
that I cared about his death, and it wasn't just a story element.
Oh yeah, like it wasn't hollow the way that real fridgings are in stories. Like
Just that scene following where they put him on the boat and then Hawkeye laid down and he was just laid down next to his dead body. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just another day, or what he said, something along those lines, like, "Oh, just another rough work day," or something.
Mm. Oh yeah, when he's reunited with Laura at the end, yeah. But yeah, I don't. It works fine. It's you know, and then the X-Men still get to keep their Quicksilver or whatever.
I hope they use him though, because I mean, I genuinely like that. I agree, it's not the comic Quicksilver, but it's still a very enjoyable character that I'd like to see more of.
Oh yeah, he's still a scene stealer all the way, as he was. And there's all kinds of. It's interesting to me, and I think just a testament of like just good filmmaking, and why Joss is the best at this. Like he's the king of killing people, not because he kills a lot of people in his shows, he does, but it's because he does them in such meaningful and important and well-written ways that it's just incredible to me that there is such an outpouring of love for this character, and not just from like the comic fans who are like, oh, you killed this long-running Marvel character, how could you do this? But just people who are strictly Marvel movie fans. I heard in just the last week, in the weirdest way, I've heard so many just outside conversations about Quicksilver. I was at a bar on Sunday, and I did everything in my power not to jump in on this conversation that was happening between these two dudes and this one woman, and they were all talking about the movie, because it was a bar right around the corner of a theater, so I knew that they had just gotten out of the movie, and they were having their little after-film discussion about it, and the girl was spinning so many theories of like, okay, he can't be dead. He just can't be. Here's all the reasons. Okay, Dr. Cho, you know, she said she could create living tissue and but she said she couldn't bring people back to life, or no, but they did find a way, and they made the vision. So how would we know that she can't just she can't fix Quicksilver or make a new body, or like it just like hearing like people having
Care
this
that much.
this great conversation that not only they care about this character who they only met once, so badly that they're like concocting all these like fan theories already. You're like, okay, here's how he's not really dead. Here's how he's gonna come back. I saw a few online where they're like, okay, maybe he's not. Maybe you don't see a gravestone at the end. Maybe Civil War. maybe Civil War opens up and he's in a coma. And like that's where that whole movie's around is like like the morality of like
taking him off life support.
Yeah, no, not life.
Oh, that theory it's cute, but hey, this movie is about Bucky being basically Tony has one arm, Steve has the other, and it's a tug of war. That's basically what I want Civil War to be about. Over Bucky.
I think that's what it will be.
It just depends on how.
I guess that brings something I was going to mention too. Obviously, you still have to continue the search for Bucky's story and have Civil War. It seems a lot to cram into that movie.
Except that in my theory is that they are the same story.
Well, I'm not saying they can't tell the same story.
Yeah.
That can't be done, but knowing the comic side of it seems like a lot to cram in. And I'm curious how I'm sure they'll do it, and I'm sure I'll be completely satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
But the speculative know-it-all nerd that's read everything is going, okay, you've got 7 issues of Civil War plus what happens in the Cap books alone and the Winter Soldier story.
Right, but that's
not how movies work. I know.
That's not how movies work. Yeah, none of them are that. That's and we don't want them to be. They're way more fun.
I don't want to know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. The movie called Age of Ultron didn't have one time travel plot in it, and the comic book was all about time travel. Where was Wolverine and Sue Storm?
Where was the hidden car that
stop Hank Pym from creating a robot? Because that's what Age of Ultron is supposed to be about. Stupid Fox. They own both those characters.
I like the way they updated Ultron for this movie. It makes sense. I understand why they did it. And it flows. It flows with the narrative of the movies. I feel like.
Yeah, we're long past these any sort of literal translation into comics. Even Winter Soldier, which did a great job of using what Ed Brubaker created with that character. Still, like that was in the comics. That was strictly a movie about. Bucky is back to life for the first time in decades. What do we do? But in the movie, it's about hey, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been secretly Hydra for all this time. It's a ruse. Everything's terrible. It's all about the dangers of government and all this corruption. And then, and also, yeah, your friend's alive and he's an evil cyborg.
And why did they call it Winter Soldier?
What?
Why did they call it Winter Soldier when he had so little to do?
Are you making an actual complaint, or are you doing a parody of a nerd?
Complaint, but really, theoretically, the name Winter Soldier seems to the focus of the story is what you just said.
I don't agree with that at all. The focus of the story is about Bucky and the Winter Soldier, but the overall framework of it is within a story about government corruption.
Okay, I agree.
And failing systems. No, Captain America: The Fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a crap title. No, it should be Winter Soldier.
The Fall of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Because it's still the Winter Soldier story, 100%.
That movie should have been called The Phantom Menace.
Oh my God!
No.
I'm curious to see. My one thing at that party they had, and Falcon kind of like, cleverly alluded. I'm working on that missing persons case.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I'm like, how many people know about this? Like that was one of my like day afterthoughts of like how many people know that that's Bucky, Natasha obviously, but how many other people know?
Nobody. I
Like
think I think it's especially since he was so careful not to use names when they were at the party. I genuinely think like that's probably a secret that only Steve, Sam, and Natasha have.
yeah, I don't think he's told anybody, and I can understand. And then that just like intrigues me.
Yeah, and I think
He
that's
find the shield that was dropped off the plane. I just thought of that. That was the thing I was worried about at the end of Captain America, that he lost his shield. And
well, I'm sure Sam is a real good swimmer, and he just spent weeks and weeks just do in his little scuba mask. And
honestly, like, I have no
paddling around.
problem with those kind of things, but those are the things that you know when you sit and think about this big movie universe, you can pick it apart like that. And what's fun is to pick it apart like that, but
Referring to the shield, and that was something. Oh my God! Like when I was watching Winter Soldier, and when he dropped his shield, I'm like, Steve, I'm like, don't do that. That's like one of my pet peeves in movies when they just drop things like that and then it's like appears just in the next movie. But I didn't notice, but somebody screen capped it on Tumblr. In that scene where they pan into the hospital bed, his shield's right by his bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. It's right. It's like it's hard to see, and you really don't see it the first time, but it is right there.
Oh,
And
I'll have to look that up.
yeah, they established right away that he found it, and that it's been with him like all the time he was recovering in that hospital.
Obi-Wan came and brought it to him and said, "This is your life."
Nerd.
The Star Wars moment at the beginning of tonight's episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. was very funny.
Oh my God, I love that. That was hilarious. And it was perfect.
When you said the Star Wars moment, in my head, I immediately went, nobody's arm got cut off in S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, wait, who was the person who got their arm cut off in Age of Ultron?
Claw. Ulysses Claw.
Right, duh, okay.
He gets it chopped off, leading up to what hopefully he will look like in the Black Panther movie.
Oh.
If not sooner. But I don't think he'll be in Civil War. I hope they're saving him for a Black Panther movie.
Me too.
But definitely it was a setup. Like, it wasn't, especially because, like, most of the arm cut-off moments in Phase 2 up to this point were either fake-outs or, like, inconsequential characters. Mm-hmm. This one was the first time it was someone of consequence, and it's for, like, a really good reason. Because, when he loses his arm in the movie, and, like, for those who know who he is in the comics, we're like, oh, I see what you've done here. And,
convenient way to have it done.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, what was the Easter egg they put in the first Phase 1? What was the Easter egg they put in all those?
I don't think they had one. I think they just, for Phase 2, he said it was something that it started accidentally.
Okay.
It was coincidence that, like, the first couple movies, somebody lost a hand or an arm, and then they realized what had happened, and then made it purposeful for that point on.
Okay.
That was going to be their subtle Star Wars reference. But there isn't any such thing in Phase 1.
So I'm hoping in Phase 3, there's just a shot of everyone in a slave bikini, Leia's slave bikini. Just like, come on. Make it happen. Make it happen.
So when Tony and Steve are fighting over Bucky, it's Bucky lying there in the slave bikini, is what you're suggesting.
I want all three of them in the slave bikini.
Mm-hmm.
Just how dare you use my cosplay?
It's that Civil War meme.
Yeah.
The first two panels are they all go to a costume party and realize they all dressed up as Slave Leia, and then the final panel is boom, Civil War.
That was my favorite meme when it was going around, and
It's super funny.
Oh man, there was one where they had subtitles where Tony accidentally said he loved him, and then he's smiling, and then it says Civil War, it says Civil Union. It was hilarious.
That was perfect. What have we missed? What have we not
I
covered?
know it's midnight, so I can't
Uh,
too much longer here. I'm trying to think of.
the,
I'm sure because we did Daredevil first, my brain was a little fried by the time we got to Avengers.
the Vision was perfect. I love him so much. His casting was so great.
He's been a character I've never cared for in the comics. Not disliked. I just never connected. I really
I
with this one.
Yeah, I always like him. Not every writer seems to know like what to do with him, but like but the way they captured him in the movie was like the essence of like, yes, that is my ideal of like who the Vision is. Like just this beautiful, sad, introspective, mechanical being who just finds human life so precious. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I love you. Oh, more of you. I want more of you, sad robot Jesus.
If they ever if they ever do a Martian Manhunter, I hope that's the same template they kind of use.
Yeah, that would be similar to my ideal Manhunter. Less of the sad, but yeah, very much like introspective, very
Quiet.
Contemplative about life.
The other thing I noticed was there was at least a moment when Vision was carrying Scarlet Witch that I was like, hey, 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 hey.
Oh yes, very deliberately. All the nerds get excited and look at each other like, oh, you see where he just swoops in there and rescues her. And
we need a Wonder Man now.
I would like to see what they would do with Wonder Man.
I would too. I think a Wonder Man would be very appropriate, especially in this world they've created. But they need more females. We need a Wasp badly. And
well, they can't call him Wonder Woman, Rob.
Anyway. So, anybody else have any things we're forgetting? I'm sure there are.
Everyone on the internet is wrong about Black Widow and the Hulk.
Yeah.
Black Widow and the Hulk. We didn't even touch that at all, did we?
Well.
And neither did she. So that's. So why everybody getting so up in arms about it?
I would just say that just because Black Widow has a romantic plot line does not make her less of a character, or that they totally disregarded her character. I felt like they put a lot of thought into that romantic subplot, and it felt very, for something, it did not come out of left field. Internet, watch the first movie. I don't think it was lessening her character at all. I felt like it was a natural progression of her character. I felt like she was always in control of the affection. She was the one directing most of it, where Bruce was the one who was kind of like, I don't know. You know, I saw a lot of like, she's the damsel in distress. I'm like, what?
No, I never felt that at all.
Yeah.
She gets captured once, but then it's great because it helps her lead everyone to Ultron's lair, and then she saves the day. So, fine.
It was just something that I felt that I liked quite a bit, and I liked it because I feel like I liked it especially because I feel like, you know, all the other characters, they have their own they have partners within their own movie kind of like realm. And like, these are two Avengers, like, you know, coming together. Like, Steve is never gonna get with Natasha, or Thor will never get with Natasha because he always has Jane, because Jane's his, you know, girl. And like, same thing with Tony Stark. And so it was interesting to see these two Avengers get together. I liked it.
I liked it because, you know, you can pretend or not pretend that the first Hulk movies exist. Sometimes I feel like they even forgot that the second Hulk movie exists. But, you know, that you can still say there's a Betty somewhere. But I feel like
Yeah,
this
no,
movie shows that, the Hulk doesn't know how to handle relationships, and I liked that. I genuinely liked that he's terrified of what he is and what he'll do to those he loves, and that he, for a while forgot that he was this monster and was gonna go for it, and then I loved the storyline. That did you left the movie caring about both of those characters and kind of wanted to see them get together and felt bad that they couldn't. And
Yeah.
absolutely. I thought it was fantastic and like a great. They don't do any like the cliche, schmaltzy romance subplot stuff there.
I love the bar scene. I love the
Oh
bar scene.
yeah, yeah. And it's the girl pursuing the guy shutting her down, and
And
you know,
kind of being naive about it at first too.
hmm
And I love that he was no, what? Me?
yeah, and like just the way that she connects with him and like the reasons she connects with him, I thought were just really honest and interesting for those characters. And it's not a pairing I would have ever thought of beforehand, but it made total sense. And it also makes total sense that it doesn't work out, and I think that's fine. And it doesn't mean that we're going to have countless movies of Nat pining after Bruce. It didn't work out. He ran off. We'll see him whenever. I don't know. Infinity War. There's probably not going to be room for romance in either of those movies. Whatever. And I think Betty is still something on his mind because there's a very direct, though subtle, reference to it in the movie, which I don't know if many people caught on to.
I didn't. I don't.
The system that he has set up to protect the world from the Hulk is called Veronica.
Ah.
He has a girlfriend he left named Betty.
That is very subtle. I don't.
My goodness.
I was disappointed that our resident Archie expert didn't pick up on that.
Oh boy.
But
Well, I gotta turn in my card.
yeah, yeah. There's a reason. There's a reason why the anti-Hulk system orbiting in space is called Veronica.
I remember that, but I just was like, I didn't register like it at all.
It is one of those things that's almost too clever because it's when they lead up to it, because at first it gets mentioned, you don't know like who's Veronica, what's Veronica, what are they talking about, and then you see, it's time to call in Veronica when he's rampaging in that African town, and you see like, oh cool, it's this system designed to deploy these cages and protective measures and things, because he talks about it. It first comes up when they're talking about Ultron, and he's like, Bruce is kind of giving him shit about coming up with the idea of Ultron or whatever, and he's like, well, you have Veronica, and they kind of talk about those systems. But yeah, that's what that's supposed to be a little wink about the fact that
I don't even know if I would have got it until somebody said it out loud. I think seeing it didn't click with me, but once you said it out loud, it's like, oh, got it.
Yeah. And there's just people are reading that whole Hulk and Widow thing really wrong, and I don't understand it.
I enjoyed it for what it was. It was. If more comes of it, great. Again, this is the movie universe. Whatever they do, I think they have the right to do.
Yeah. I'm not gonna throw up arms because Hawkeye has this whole family life that he's never had in the comics. If anything, it makes me feel like, oh, I wish that he had that. I wish that was canon in the books because it's just so enriching, and it's like something they could still build to. Certainly, like I don't want him to have like, if he had a secret family in the comics now, it'd be because he's a crappy dad and he just left them somewhere. But
War, got rid of all that.
Yeah. But I like those kinds of flourishes, and I like that I can go to these movies and still be surprised and moved by things, and not just for the reasons that, like, oh, it's just like the thing I read.
Yeah. It's still the same flavor. It's still the same soul of this character. It's, again, I don't want to be able to predict everything that's going to happen.
Yeah, as long as it's true to the essence of the characters and it makes logical sense, I'm all for it.
Well, I probably should call it a night here. I'm sure you guys are petering out too.
Me especially.
I'm sure there's things we're forgetting, but maybe we can do a follow-up after an IMAX showing. Who knows?
Yes, I'm sure we'll have more things fresh on our minds.
And with Secret Wars and all that coming up, there's never a lack of things to talk about nerd-wise lately.
And thank goodness for it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We've got the season finales of
That's
of our
right.
shows coming up.
Yeah.
Grodd. Well, thanks for watching, and we can sign off here, and I'll have Tracy do her call sign.
Excelsior! Oh, wait, no, I did it wrong. Excelsior.
Thanks for watching.